From news and product reviews to husbandry, habitat, and conservation, we discuss all things reptile. With special guests from all around the world, we talk about the reptiles we keep, the unique ways we keep them, and how we can work together to push herpetoculture forward and preserve the species we love. From the guys who brought you Greg's Reptile Studio and Hudson Valley Reptile and Rescue, this is the Reptile Studio.
I'd like to welcome everybody back to another podcast episode of the Reptile Studio podcast with myself, Brian, from Hudson Valley Reptile and Rescue, and Greg from the Reptile Studio.
What's up, guys? So on today's podcast, I am really excited to introduce Amy Benzi from, is it Benzi? B-E-N-Z-I, Benzi?
Yes.
Amy Benzi from Happy Basins on Instagram and Happy Basins on TikTok, right? And Allison, you said?
Yes. Yeah. Allison Surf.
And some beautiful snakes. So, Amy, my first sort of question to you is, why Emerald Tree Boas?
Well, my husband chose these animals. I wanted to get a couple of snakes. My initial idea was to get a couple of false water cobras. I wanted a pair of those because they're so friendly and handleable, and you can put a plate of food down with a smorgasbord of different things and they'll eat it. I saw all kinds of videos, so I was really crazy about those animals. And then my husband had never handled a snake in his life. I had snakes when I was a girl. And he said that he wanted something that looked different. So he started using Google and searching, and he found these animals and fell in love. And so I was going to get a pair of Northerns because, they're much more affordable. But by the time he got done doing all the research, he decided he definitely wanted these. And we had a really hard time finding one. And we finally did find one, which people always want to know, how did you find all those animals? Because they're so hard to come by. But I had just went on to the Facebook groups and sent messages and emails to every single solitary person I could find that was a possibility.
That's a good way to do it.
Yep. And over the next year, after I got one, then Steve Volk sent me an email, and he had two available. One is Isis that she has, and then Isis's littermate Zolus. And then that's okay. And then we just, Steve Volk contacted us. He had a rescue, which is our little Bella, the one that we didn't hold. We had Bella for over a year before we held her, because out of all 7, she's the only one who didn't want us to hold her. So we left her alone. And then Allison started coming around, and that little snake fell in love with Allison. And now she's handleable and friendly and always wants to be out here on the jungle gym.
Awesome.
So
Yeah, awesome.
Amazing.
Come a long way.
They are an amazing species.
And I wanted to, you guys can ask questions. Go ahead. I'll try not to jump over.
It's totally acceptable. You can tell us everything that you want. I've been dying to know. So as a keeper for many, many years, keeping my animal within its enclosure has always been something that was very important. As you're in a normal home, it gets out, it becomes lost, and then you have an escaped snake.
Yes,
I have seen your videos. You allow them the free space to roam in a very safe space, I would imagine.
yes.
And I find that to be absolutely remarkable. The sped up videos that you do to watch them go from one end to the other and back into their enclosure and it's just, what made you think to do that?
Well, you don't know, which a lot of people have me on their podcast for this one reason, but I think I can tell from some of our conversations that you don't know that I travel to the Amazon rainforest to find these animals in the wild.
Okay.
Allison's been with me to Peru, Colombia, and Brazil, and then I've been to Suriname and Guyana, and I've been all of those places multiple times.
Okay.
And I just, when I was going, to seeing them in the wild, I realized that these animals, they forage. They're not just ambush predators. They forage all night long for extended distances, up and down, all across the treetops. They go down to the river and back up the trees. And can you guys see?
Yep.
Is that
Yeah.
Cassius?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, it's on there. I'm watching.
There he goes. Yeah, I saw how much they travel, and I just knew that I wanted my animals to have that opportunity. So we went down to the river. We got this big 20-foot thing, like a stick, and you could pull a string and saw. And I cut all these, I think you could see them all behind me.
Yep.
All these vines down, and we found the studs in the ceiling, and they're secured up there very good.
Okay.
We have little baby things and all the plugs in the room. The cords are all secure, so if the heaviest animal, climbs up a cord, it holds her. So the thing that brought me to do that was that I wanted to give them as much as I could their natural environment. And you had mentioned, Brian, before we started recording, we were chatting about the northern. And
Correct.
I understand that not all animals are handleable. Like, for example, my little Bella, she was,
Right.
you couldn't even touch her door and she was already,
Right.
coming
Right. Right.
at you. And now you can just pick her up, and I probably kiss my snakes too much, but I just love to kiss them. And she's just amazing. This morning I was hand feeding her water. She's just a completely different animal.
That's
And
fantastic.
when I go to the rainforest, I free handle multiple northerns at one time.
Yeah.
Because I've discovered that if these animals, they're very curious. If I put one new thing in their enclosure, they are down there, even sometimes before the sun goes down, to check it out. And if I open their enclosures, I have these removable vines here. I open their enclosures and I connect these vines made out of soaker hose in their enclosure and then to these vines up here. And sometimes they'll be coming out before the sun goes down because they want to see what's going on.
Wow.
So I've discovered that with the wild ones, the same as these guys, if I give them something to focus on in the wild, like for example, my tripod and my camera is perfect because then they're just trying to get to whatever they can climb on and I can handle them. They start to get curious about something. But if I just would try to handle them, say right on the boat after we get them, then they're a lot different than they are when I can offer them something to be curious about.
Right.
They're more defensive, I'm sure, without offering them something.
That's right.
Well,
exactly.
then you become their focus, I would assume, and then that can, I mean, with your heat signature for their pits, they probably drives them completely wild. They just think you're something trying to eat it, I would imagine. Never would I blame any reptile for trying to bite me. I'm not going to eat. I'm very imposing, but I promise I'm not going to eat you. It does happen quite frequently as I deal with more animals that I don't know than I do animals that I do know. I think there's around 15 or 20 that are kind of mainstays in our group, and then we have 57 at any given time, or 50 between 50 and 60 at any given time. So more than half of it is kind of in flux. You never really know what you're going to get. Right. I have one question about the room that you have and the way that you allow them to interact. Are they out at the same time, or are you pick and choose different days, different nights? How does that work?
Sometimes I let them all out if they want to come out. I have two males that don't come out. I can leave their door open probably all year and they won't come out. But like, for example, one time Zaltis, he's the brother to Isis and he's full grown, 5 years old. He slithered into Asmoa's enclosure, who's a year younger and much smaller, or 2 years younger. And she did not like it. she zipped right out of there. I could tell she was stressed, so I got him out and just directed her back in.
Wow.
So I have learned that the smaller animals do not like being around the bigger animals. They will keep a pretty good distance from them. So now I just let the bigger animals out at once. And then the little ones, they don't get to just come out unattended. Bella is 2 years old, and she's the one who's just really coming around. And I noticed that she was getting really curious when the other animals were out. She would just come and sit right at her glass and always looking at things. So I decided to go ahead and try it. And that was the last zoomed up video that I posted.
Okay.
And she just absolutely loved it. You know, people, I had a lot of comments, oh, that animal's trying to escape. But escaping would look more like pushing on the walls.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know, trying to get out of things. And she was, you know, that video sped up. I sped it up times 16.
Oh,
and then
yeah.
I had to save it and then do it again because I couldn't get it fast enough, you know.
Right.
So they move so slow. And, you know, the little tongue is coming out for every little thing, checking everything. So yeah, Bella's got to come out now, and her and the one that's up there, Cassius Clay, they're the same age, and he doesn't really go far. Some of them will come out a little bit and kind of anchor themselves and then turn around and go home.
Do they put themselves away, or is it more of a you have to manually do that every day, or do they pretty much know where home is?
First of all, I only let them out about maybe 5 days or so before it's time for them to eat, because as you know, they're not very active.
Right.
You know, they're only active 2 or 3 weeks, depending on how long I go. Like these guys right now, they've been 3 weeks, but they're getting on their winter schedule, so they might not eat again even for another 3 weeks. And when they're hungry like that, they're really active and curious. So I only handle them when they're hungry. And they
said nobody ever.
I know, right?
Sorry.
But if you don't handle them when they're hungry, they don't want to be handled, and then I'm forcing them. But when they're hungry, I mean, these animals come right out. They want something from you. And my animals, they like to come out because they know they get to slither around. They might get water, food.
Yeah.
So
interaction, exercise, curiosity, finding something new. Yeah, there's a whole list of what you could say they were looking for from you. Yep, absolutely.
Exactly. And when I first got my first one, all but 2 of these I got when they were still neonates.
Okay. Were they all captive bred, or do you have wild caught as well?
No, I don't have anything wild caught, and these are all basins. So, you know, basins are not, you can't import them unless you can find one in Suriname or Guyana, which we're hoping to do. We're going back in February. Like this year, I was in the jungle for the first 4 months of the year. I was there January all the way till I guess May. And I was just coming home for 2 weeks and going back, you know, coming home, going back. And I told my husband, I'll just stay so we don't have to buy all those plane tickets. And he said, no, you need to come home and recharge. So
yeah.
I love being out there with them.
That's pretty remarkable. Yeah, it's not, I mean, a lot of keepers do that nowadays, mostly people who are keeping things that are from their general region. But, you know, I've seen a lot more push to people who are really going deeper into the species that they're keeping, traveling to those locations and doing it. I mean, that's what being a keeper is really all about. Some of the most famous people in this entire industry are products of that. I will go and observe these animals in their natural habitat, like Bert Langerwolf, specifically with tegus. I mean, he was forever in the Amazon. He was forever down in Argentina. He was forever down there learning how to handle them, how to understand them in the wild, so he can then turn around and breed them here in the United States, which he did first, before any zoo, before any other private organization. It was him. All of the new stuff with tegus aside, of course, but it's a very endearing thing to be able to see something in its natural habitat. You know, here in New York State, we don't have a lot of reptiles. We have very, very few. The black rat snake is my favorite snake, although they have renamed it 1,000 times and it is now Eastern or Northern or some other thing. I don't really pay that much attention to taxonomy, only because I've been calling it a black rat snake for 25 years. I probably won't stop.
Right.
You know, they are equally inquisitive. They are problem solving, smart animals that just can't do. But when you see them in the wild, the point that I was getting to, I'll speed it up. When you see them in the wild, they are so much more interactive with their environment than I think a lot of people really genuinely want to put that brain into that animal. But there really is a lot that those animals are doing to fit. It's not just like, oh, I happened upon a rodent nest, or oh, I happened upon a food source, or it's really dedicated time, energy, and effort into tracking, looking, locating, figuring out what they want to do, finding water, finding food, finding a good place to hide. And one of the things that I found remarkable with your videos was you were giving that to captive reptiles. And I've definitely tried to figure out how I could do that. Right now, it's definitely not a feasible thing, but we have 30 different species of all different sizes, and the sheer practicality of it would be almost insurmountable, I feel, with the space that we have given. But it would be really nice to see a lot of keepers maybe have that exercise time I know a lot of people put them on a stick in the middle of the room and let them climb all they want, but it's not the same. It's very different when you allow that animal to do what you do, where its choice is to come out if it wants to, so on and so forth. So I still find, I mean, good on you. It's really awesome. I'm glad you figured out a way to do that. You probably have such a good relationship with them based on the fact that you allow them the freedoms to pick and choose what they want to do. You know, I mean, that's
so
of
too.
course work as well.
Yes. And, you know, with 7 of them all behaving the exact same way, and one that didn't come like this,
right?
You know, and now she is behaving that way. I really feel like they're emboldened by the interaction and the enrichment, and it changes their personalities. They're not defensive, they're real comfortable, they have expectations, they want stuff,
right?
And that's why I call them happy basins, because I used to raise German Shepherds, and the 2 times that I kept one of the puppies, I chose that puppy by the one that cried the most, tried to escape, caused the most trouble, because it was smart and it had expectations and it wanted more. Right. And I feel like that's the same with these animals. The more stuff you try and you find they like it, then you just build on that. And I've, you know, been so fortunate to get to go be with them in the wild to see how they behave, because if I only went by the Facebook group, I would think that they would be best in a plastic tub with a PVC pipe running between it.
Right.
And I know that's the extreme, you know, but when I first got my first one, there was a coat rack next to her enclosure, and we left it open. We were cleaning and, you know, just admiring her and taking pictures. She was a little red thing. And she climbed up out of her little enclosure onto that coat rack and was just trying to get to the ceiling. And so that was my very first experience with their curiosity and wanting to climb. So we went and bought a bunch of rope and hung it from eye hooks all over the ceiling. And we would drop that rope in there and she would come out. And I thought that was so cool. And I posted it on Facebook. And the next morning, I just deleted the post because I was embarrassed of all the people who said I was stressing her and, telling me don't take pictures. So when I got the big ones, Altus and Isis were 3 when I got them. And I had so many beautiful pictures I loved of me holding my snakes, but I never put it on social media because I didn't want to be that guy, you know?
No, I definitely know. I'm a product of, you know, doing this for as long as I have. Our social media footprint is like COVID, and, you know, because I don't care anymore what anybody else has to say. But yeah, I definitely get it. I really understand exactly what you're saying. And it's a shame too, because how long have you been, when was your first acquisition of your basin, your original?
July 2020.
Right. So you've been doing this for quite some time and only posting
for just 2 years, a little over 2 years.
No, I meant you've been doing it for 2 years, but you've only been posting for how long? right? That's the
Right,
deciding factor.
exactly.
Yeah, and it's a
Right.
shame because all of those moments were a glimpse in time of your methods to introduce yourself to those animals, have those animals interact with you, and because of people who don't have a concept of reptiles having a brain, you kept yourself from posting all that. It's just unfortunate. I'm glad you are now though, because let me tell you, your stuff is absolutely incredible. The
Thank you.
work
And
that
the
you're
pictures that you mentioned back there, those are, that's actually an emerald basin that I found in Peru. And I was with a research team and there happened to be 2 professional photographers with us. So
oh,
I got those pictures.
they're
Perfect.
amazing.
So actually, Amy, I have another question, and I don't want to. I want. I'm sorry. What's your friend's name again?
Allison Surf.
Allison. I want Allison to. I would like to. Hear something from Allison too. But I also had a quick question about. Well, not really a question, but we were talking about handling them when they're hungry. And it's interesting too. And I think you're familiar with Lori Tarini, correct?
With what?
Lori Tarini from
No,
behavior,
not right off
animal
the top of
behavior.
my head.
Well, what she does is she's an animal behavior like specialist.
Mm.
And one thing and actually her main specialty lately, the past few years, has been quote unquote like training snakes.
Oh,
More so
yes.
figuring out
I
their
saw
behavior.
her. Yes.
Yes, yeah. So one of the things she does is she has like stations, like cat trees and various things like that that are movable, and she will, uh, start off pairing food with a target.
Mhm.
So the snake will follow the target eventually because it knows that food will be on the other end. Um, and because of that, she's able to have them shift out of their enclosures and onto, an activity station or a
Mhm.
transfer station, and then she can reward them or reinforce that behavior with food. And then she can go and
Mhm.
clean the enclosures and this and that. Um, and do the same thing to get them back in. But she also lets them out, on their own to do what they please the way that you do. Um, but it shows how much of, I mean, I'm not a scientist, but how much of their intelligence is food related. Now,
Right.
not to say that all they do is for food. I mean, that's ridiculous to think. But the desire for the next meal
Mhm.
invokes a lot of like conscious like thought and decision making. And I just kind of wanted to highlight that and also thank you for what you do, because between the two of you, like my goals for my reptiles, some of them, is to be as natural as it can possibly be without actually being in their natural habitat. So
Mhm.
it is amazing.
Mm. It's amazing to watch and be part of. If you love the animals. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's incredible to sit here and watch the two of you interact with those emeralds, just as if I was holding my 17-year ball python that I use for educational lectures, and I let kids hold, and I trust him 100%. He's never tried to bite anybody. He's never given anyone a problem, and he's one of our animal ambassadors that we use here at the rescue to try and get people over the fear of snakes. We do a lot of general public stuff, so we're more in the limelight of people who are like, ew, a snake, and good snake,
Right.
the only good snake's a dead snake. Well, okay, I mean,
We
but
know
there's
that.
this
We
one.
we totally understand that.
It's a
I think that
frustrating
was-
concept.
I think that is one of the things that both of us are really trying to promote, is that these guys are beautiful animals and they should be loved and respected, not feared.
Yep,
You know,
absolutely.
education is such a huge part of this.
Yeah. And the education that you're going with is even more in depth, just by allowing them to have that open freedom to choose what they want to be able to do. It even brings more education and more information to light, just based on the interactions that you yourselves are having. It's not like you're doing anything that's completely out of the reach of other humans. You're just providing one more step of basic care, in my opinion. Not that I don't use smaller enclosures for some species. We have sick animals that need, they need to be quarantined, whatever the case may be. But at the same point in time, once something becomes a dedicated animal, it's a dedicated animal. If it's going to live there, it's going to live there forever, and it's going to get a bigger environment, a bigger enclosure, so on and so forth. My 3.5, 4 foot red tegu comes out and walks around all day. That's what he does. I get there, I open the door, he comes out. He's in Burmation right now, but normally during normal times of the year, he comes out and runs around and does his thing. But the sheer will to educate in this industry is the most important part of it, because I've never wanted more people to be a part of this. I've always wanted like the hobby to kind of pull the people that deserve to be in it more than I think these animals should be available at every pet store, so on and so forth. But at the same point, so many people get that first reptile at that pet store, and if they have a good luck, that animal is healthy, and they foster this passion, they grow into people like us, and they do these things, and they learn these things, and they interact with these animals in a way that 20 years ago, if you had told me I'd be sitting here on my computer and there would be two ladies holding Emerald Tree Boas opposite this camera of mine, I would laugh very hard, and I would be like, you're out of your mind. That's one of those snakes that always had a reputation. It's not unlike the retics from back in the day, and a lot of these other animals that were thought to be very aggressive until we figured out a better way. I just think it's remarkable what you do, and it's really nice to see that there's so many more people who do what we do. And that's the beautiful part about social media, is we can actually see the positivity. Now, if we can just change the minds of a lot of the famous people who are talking about reptiles, maybe we can change that and set that precedent to be a little bit better. It's one of the reasons Greg and I do this podcast is, we don't have any bias to anybody the way anybody does anything, but we want the information on how other people do things to come out, because if you don't know somebody is allowing their basin emeralds to wander their room at night, if you don't know it, then how are you ever going to be possibly interacting with your basin in a correct way? It's just a fact. The more information you have, the more decisions you can make. The more decisions you can make, the better your lives of your animals can be. End of story. Really, I mean, not to drag it out, which I'm very good at, by the way. I never stop talking. I'm sorry. It's years of being
on. You're gonna make a great Romeo. You know what a Romeo is?
No, let's no, I don't even want to guess. Let's just have you tell me.
A rambling old man expressing his opinion.
Oh, all right. Yeah, no, I already am. That's good. I'm already there. We're good. I have no problem telling anybody my opinion.
I just said that because you said it.
Oh no, it's okay. I'm totally fine with that. I am opiniated, and I like those facts to be known. I want people to understand that they don't have to kill a snake. It's just because it's a snake, it doesn't mean it's evil, wicked. I do a lot of my presentations are directly influencing children, younger kids, groups, school groups. I do a lot of school groups. But we have a lot of nature centers in our area that are specifically designed to bring kids up from New York City. So, like literally no wildlife contact to, holy crap, there's a 4-foot tegu in my face. Yeah, but he's fine. He's calm. He's harmless.
Well, Allison's from the south side of Chicago.
Okay.
And
same
she
principle.
moved here to Arkansas about 20 years ago, and she earned a degree in field wildlife biology.
There you go.
So she was kind of one of those kids,
Yep. I was one of those kids. And when I grew up, I didn't have any access to see reptiles or have somebody show me anything. We just didn't have it. The closest thing we had was Brookfield Zoo. And that was great and everything, but to get hands-on and specific and have a keeper really show you something up close and personal,
Right.
it can make all the difference in the world on impacting children and kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mhm.
Absolutely. That's, I mean, it can go either way. You know, I've seen people who are absolutely terrible educators doing very negative things to foster that passion inside of somebody. And I've also seen a lot of people, even people who are, I don't want to say uneducated, it's not the right word, but college educated, doing a lot of work on social media, trying to teach people really positive messages, being smarter, being, you know, be
Right.
observant, just in generalized non-reptile related situations. And I just,
Right.
that's a real push to society. You know, that's a real good step in the right direction. Let's get people, kids specifically, to know more, and they can make better decisions if they're educated properly. It's a phenomenal,
Right.
phenomenal thought process.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
very glad that the person who came into my school when I was in like 3rd grade had me hold the head of a retic. Maybe not in hindsight at this moment, but I'm very glad that that happened, because here I am remembering that. I'm almost 40 years old. I'm remembering it like it was yesterday. I can still picture my hands that were smaller holding this snake. And, you know, it's just, I've always wanted to do that for another generation. And I have been doing that for almost 20 years. And it's just a phenomenal thing. And here's another situation that I'm completely floored by someone who's working with an animal that I have always thought would be a negative interaction almost regardless. I mean, I know basins are a little different, and they always kind of had been, but you know, Emerald Tree Boa was an Emerald Tree Boa to a lot of the majority of the industry, especially when I was younger. And now, not only are they a different group, but they're also showing that you can do things like we were talking about with the Northern. You can do different things. You can try different steps to make that bond. And I
definitely don't feel any difference between the Northern and the Basin
Right.
when it comes to personality. I
Right.
think, you know, it's just a sad rap that they have, because, you know, I've been out in the jungle with trappers, you know, that have been trappers for decades. And, you know, the animals are captured, and, you know, sometimes those fellas out there mining, you know, they're working in the mines,
Right.
or fishing, you know, they could be out there for a month. And if they find a green snake, they'll put it in a bag, you know, and save it till they get back to town. And then, you know, it stays with someone else, and then it gets
Right.
shipped. And it's just a lot of stress. So the animal does not have the sense of security, you know, that it needs to be tamed. And that's why
Right.
I feel that I can tame them right there on the spot in the wild, because I make sure they feel secure, you know, make sure that their little tails have something to wrap
Yeah.
around, and that their eyes are focused on something that they want to slither onto. So there are definitely great ways to do it.
Oh yeah. And I'm definitely watching you interact with that animal right now. And I'm not regretting my
And the
decision
one-
to adopt out our Northern, but regretting my decision to adopt out our Northern.
And Isis is almost 6 feet long. She's a little over 5.5 feet, and
Wow.
she's the only one who bites.
The one I have.
Yep. And I've been bitten by her twice. Once was a very soft bite. It just kind of reminded me of one of my German shepherds. If you tickle their ear or blow in it, you know.
Yeah.
She barely did anything to me. But another time, she was coiled up on the vines up here, and I was walking back and forth making videos and talking, and I had been, you know, ducking under her. Well, I just forgot. And she was tracking my phone. I have surveillance cameras all over this room. In this
Okay.
little tiny room, I have 9 cameras. So I got it
Holy
all
moly.
on video, but she reached down off that branch, and a huge mouth open, and got me right in the face.
Oh,
And,
goodness.
you know, I thought I got scratched by one of the vines. So I just kind of ducked down to look up to see what scratched me. And, you know, the teeth marks are just like needles. So they went away quickly, but I had
Yeah.
a nice bruise that lasted like about a week. And, you know, she was fine after that. She still went home. Oh, that was a question you were asking me earlier. I didn't answer. The animals, Isis always goes home. She comes out, she can slither around this room for 6 hours. however long. When that sun barely cracks, she goes home. And
Wow.
Zaltis follows Isis everywhere she goes.
Okay.
He's allowed to decide what he wants to do. It's going to be fun when the other animals are older, you know, to see how they choose each other, because I have 4 males and 3 females.
Okay.
And they're going to get to do that. But the other animals, when it's time for them to go home, like for example, Cassius Clay is up on that hammock thing right now. And what I
Okay.
would do if I wanted him to go home now, I would take one of these other vines and I would get him to slither on it by tickling his tail. And then once he slithers on it, I would hook the vine into his enclosure and encourage him to go home. And sometimes that means sitting on these hammocks, you know, for 2 hours.
Right.
You know, just watching and, you know, keep directing their head back toward their enclosure. But we can mostly always get them to slither home.
That's amazing.
If they don't go home naturally.
Amazing. I feel I've definitely tried to send the same sort of message with carpet pythons. I've worked with coastal carpets primarily. Not breeding anymore, but you know, 15 years ago I was. And you know, trying to break that stereotype of they're kind of quirky. No, they're actually really quite personable and very friendly. You have to get them to trust you. They have to know that you're not trying to eat them like I was talking about before. And you had said a couple key words that was like, you know, that is exactly what I say in my stage presentations when I hold up my 7.5 foot 13-year-old carpet python that I bred. She's been mine since she came out of the egg. And I'm like, this snake in the wild doesn't know any better. If something flies past her face, she has to eat. She's got to try. You just have to work around the way she's been living her whole life and all of her the words escape me at the moment, but intuitions. You know, you have to just work around how that animal perceives its environment. Greg, what did you take out? Which one is that?
So my Antaresia my children's python was wanting to come out. And he's a male, and he's, you know, he's close to full grown. He's about a little over 2 feet, I would say. And he's in a 4x2 enclosure, because I had to upgrade him because he thought a enclosure that was a little bit smaller was too small. And the same thing in this one. He wants to come out all the time. I mean, he can disappear in that thing and you can't even see him, but it's still, but yeah, he wanted to come out. He was around at the glass, you know.
Yes.
Around. So I was like, you know what, let
to.
me open it up and wait for him to come out. It's the first time I've actually had one of my reptiles with me during the podcast. So you guys inspired me.
Awesome.
I'm actually at home, and that's why I have this digital background, because this room looks like a bomb went off. But I don't have reptiles here at my home.
Well, how about I show you guys some of the vine systems that I created?
That would be phenomenal.
I feel like it's very important to my animals. These I just keep on the floor, and I call them my offering vines, and they're made out of soaker hose, so they can be, they're very bendable, but still sturdy.
That's awesome.
So like I said, I hook that to one of the vines up top here, and then hook the other end into their enclosure. And that's how they just slither right out.
Gotcha.
And I also have these all strewn inside of their enclosures. It has a really nice texture. It's soaker hose with copper wire inside of it. This is a 1-inch soaker hose with a 6-gauge copper wire. And then a 1/2 or a 1/4-inch soaker hose with a 10-gauge copper wire. And they, like I said, they're real sturdy, and you don't need to hook anything to the sides of the enclosures. You just wind this all up and stick it in there. And something that makes me sad is how many of these animals just have these straight sticks to sit on. And in many cases, all the pictures and videos I have of many wild emeralds, basins and northerns, are always on a little tiny twig. They get on the smallest thing they can.
Right.
And then I'm going to also show you, these are my removable vines. Sorry if I talk loud. I forget my microphone's hooked to my shirt and I don't have to yell at you.
No problem.
These are vines that I make also. I don't sell them or anything, but I help lots of people make them. And all this is a walking stick I got off eBay. And then I use the soaker hose now, but this is an older model. And it's actually that reptile vine that you can buy online.
The bendable stuff with the metal insert.
Yes.
Okay.
I stripped all the little metal out of it and filled it with the good copper wire, so it's nice and sturdy. But you see how it has all these.
Yeah.
These animals, they use all the way from up here.
Yeah.
And they strewn their bodies down and get in it. And that's how they like to sit when they're hunting. This is Asmoah, my very first little girl. She ate a live rat for the very first time in her life the other day.
Oh, goodness.
I just had one and I wanted to try it and she loved it. So that's why I'm not taking her off here because she's
I understand. Yep. It's a beautiful
But yeah,
snake,
these
I
vines,
love that deep color on the top.
they just sit catty corner right in the enclosure. So you saw how easy I just took it out.
Did you originally design that so that you could clean easier and remove that so you could get in there and wipe everything down, or was that something you did for enrichment only originally?
This is something that we did when we got the two big ones. I told my husband I wanted a vine that looked like cotton candy. And that's exactly what he made me, a cotton candy vine. And I did it because I just wanted them to have all stuff to slither on.
Gotcha.
And I couldn't come up with like how to do it. And so I just kept thinking of stuff, and together my husband and I came up with this design. And I didn't do it for cleaning, even though, you know, of course that's a huge bonus. I did it because I didn't think I was allowed to touch them.
Gotcha.
And I wanted a removable perch so I could still take them out. And anyway, it just has worked out great.
Yeah, it looks it. I mean, right now you're holding something that just ate and you're not interacting with it really any kind of obtrusive way. You know, you're doing what you need to do, but while allowing the animal to still remain comfortable. It's phenomenal. Very, very well
And I
done.
have all of the enclosures are filled with real plants, which really helps with the humidity. I see people always struggling talking about humidity on the forums, but live plants make it really easy to keep the humidity levels high, and the snakes love them. They really do. So it's real easy for me to, I just take this stick out and I keep one potted plant with a wide rim so that I can put all different kinds of plants in there. And I just take this stick out, take the plant out, spray everything down with the hydrogen peroxide, rinse it real good, and put everything back.
Wow.
So they have a good life.
Yeah, I'm envious of that cleaning routine. Let me tell you, my cleaning routine's a little bit more in depth than this. I have a 7-foot boa that just doesn't like me. She's been in our care for over like 6 years, 7 years, and she just has never really warmed up to me. She lets other people interact with her, no problem, just so we're clear. But for some reason, she does not like my smell, my odor, my size, my whatever. I don't care. It's fine. She still is allowed to exist. You know, obviously, I'm not going to ever do anything wrong to her. But
yes,
cleaning her is you know, it takes me an hour and a half, 40 at least to interact with her long enough to get her out of her enclosure, to be able to put her into something contained and then remove her back in. And we were talking about Lori Torini earlier, and I've been working on her slowly with some sort of target training, and for her to understand that she can follow some object, and it's actually working pretty well, which I'm again very surprised about. She doesn't have that same standoff behavior. She doesn't open her mouth. She doesn't hiss at me anymore. She's actually she still doesn't like me touching her, but we're getting there. We're getting there. She doesn't react to full on turn around and try and bite me. So it's really nice to see a way to be unobtrusive into your snake's life for cleaning, for feeding, for interacting in the same respect, you know, because there's obviously things that have to be done. You know, you can't not clean, you can't not interact.
Right.
I'm risking a pretty decent negative interaction with a boa, you know, if something should go wrong. But it's not like I can't not do it. You know, we have to do these things. If there are captive animals, we have to remove sheds, clean everything down. They have to have an environment that's also conducive, because we're not outside. You know, outside has a lot of natural things that keep bacterias and other things from growing
Right.
very crazy. Mold especially is a big one, especially
Mhm.
with high humidity. And you still have to clean everything down. And it's remarkable to see how other people do it. And you do it really, really well, especially with the species you chose. I mean, not that you can't just probably pick them up when they're not hungry, or when they are hungry, excuse me, and interact with
Yeah,
them, no problem, right?
sure.
Yeah.
But they're much more interactive when they're hungry.
Yeah.
And you know, I think that these animals, this is not a popular opinion, but I feel like I've proven it. These, look at it. I mean, she could go
Yeah.
anywhere she wants. She's coming right to me.
Yeah.
These animals, like I said, they're emboldened by the interaction. I've seen their personalities change. I have one boy in here, he's 3 years old, and he always would sleep all the way back in the corner. I left him alone. I didn't touch him. And then I, you know, kind of just started rubbing him under the chin and offering him water, the water bottle. And all of a sudden he sleeps at the front. Comes out to see what we're doing. He's a completely different animal. He did not hide from my interaction. It emboldened him.
It changed his personality to want to be more interacted with, to make it easier
Yes.
for you to interact with him. Yeah, it's remarkable.
So I think that there's some level of enjoyment that these animals get from the interaction, whether it's nothing but stimulation,
Right.
or they just love me so much. They love us, right?
They do. Well, I love Isis, and I feel like she loves me back.
Yes, those two are always together when she's over here.
I think Isis is the most, well, in my sort of understanding of Instagram, Isis, I think, is probably the most
I'll be right back, guys.
Okay.
The most famous.
Yeah, Isis, because she's so big, and Cassius Clay got kind of famous over he's the water baby.
Yeah.
But yes, Isis, her size, she's majestic looking, and she has a lot of personality. She's very verbal.
Yes.
People say these animals don't growl. Well, she vibrates when she growls. It's not just a little breath. She growls. And she will tell you when she's done. And when she's done, you just let her go back. And, you know, like I said, she's the only one that's bit me ever. She bit me twice because she's bold and she knows what she wants, and she's not afraid to try to get it. So
yeah,
but they're all very gentle.
My cocker python is the same way. You know, with the sounds, you know, and the you know, I guess vibration, you could call it that, but she's very, I guess, you know, for lack of a better term, vocal.
Yeah, that's what we say. She's vocal.
Yeah,
we did one podcast where Isis was she had positioned herself right around Allison's neck, where her head was right over her microphone, that we have these little lapel mics. And the whole time, every time there was a moment of silence, you would hear Isis go.
In fact, she's doing it just a little bit right now. I don't know if the mic will pick that up.
But yeah, I mean, you could see this snake right here. She's right in my face.
Yeah.
Just right at me. And she can go anywhere. She's not afraid of me. Her body is completely relaxed. I have no fear of getting bit because she doesn't have enough pressure in any particular spot to make a strike.
Right.
So being able to read their body language, you know, that's the most important thing. And the same with the ones in the wild. With the wild ones, you can tell. I don't know if you've seen my videos, but I mean, I'll hold, multiple basins at once. I've got, one picture where I've got 4 Amazon tree boas at one time, and many times 3 of them. So I'm not a snake whisperer. I think Allison is, for real. I'm just fearless, for one, and have just developed a way to, like I said, show them something that they want to look at, or that they want to climb on or be curious about.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, I'm not the threat. I'm just the one offering them what they want.
Yeah,
Hi,
people always
sweetie.
say when it comes to handling snakes is don't handle the snake. Let the snake handle you. Like be a tree. Maybe a tree with a little bit more, movement to it. But just be the physical sort of vessel for that snake to get to where it wants to go.
Yes,
Obviously you can
exactly.
manipulate it. You can manipulate that because we have, movable limbs and bendable body parts, but yeah, it is much easier to handle a snake.
If I grabbed her on her neck right now, she would move so fast. She would be so mad at me.
Right.
But like you said, I don't handle them. I just, like even when I get them out of their enclosures, I learned something when I very first got, this is Asmoa, my first one, from Emily from Snake Discovery. She had a Amazon tree boa, and she showed how you tickle the tail with one hand and guide it with the other hand. And so I used that technique to get them off. And, I just put their head somewhere and start tickling their tail. And once they're out, full body, then I just pick them up. So these animals are not unwound off of a,
Right.
Right.
I'm just going to say it. Those fellas, they keep those snakes on a PVC pipe in a little tiny box for 20 years, 15 years. And then they think it's mean if somebody wants to hold their snake. I've seen such vicious comments from people holding their animals. So I'm glad that I have the opportunity. If I weren't traveling to the jungle and seeing these animals in the wild and, having such healthy, clearly very healthy animals, I would have no respect for what I'm doing. But between my travels and my healthy animals, I can show whatever I want to, and I love it. I get so I don't get any negative comments anymore, even in the Emerald Tree Boa forum. I never get anything negative.
Good.
And I have,
You shouldn't.
yeah. And I get a lot of positive, like what you've said, thanks for showing us. We would have never known.
Yep.
So I'm thrilled with it.
Yeah, it's remarkable work. It really is. And I mean, you definitely have the proof to back it up, regardless of what anybody else could possibly say to you. Here's 10 videos that prove you wrong. Just shush. It's
I
mean,
the
best
if I can
thing
sit
about it.
with 7, did you see the video I pinned it at the top of my page where I'm holding all 7 of them, and they're all happy. None of them are.
Yeah, none of them's trying to eat you or do anything crazy. Or
Allison and I get them all out because these animals are all potty trained, fully potty trained. I never clean poop out of their enclosures. I have a rain chamber here. The same night they eat, they go into the rain chamber, and then I'll put like 3 of them in there at a time. And as soon as one drops their tail, I have this little plastic thing I just put under their tail, and they poop in there, and I take it outside, rinse it with the hose, and come back for the next one.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, sorry, girl. I didn't know your head was right there. I'm sorry, sweetie. But on those nights, I like to really handle my snakes a lot on feeding nights. And so on those nights, Allison and I put them all in the rain chamber. We handle them. We kiss them too much.
We take videos, pictures.
Right.
And then we feed them. So if
Remarkable.
folks want to say that the animals will be too stressed and they won't eat, that's not true.
Yeah, no, I do a lot of week-long presentations where we have a table display of animals that are not necessarily in their home enclosures, but in something suitable at least for a week. And I get a lot of flack from that as well, with people telling us that they're going to be too stressed out. Well, as soon as we get home, every one of those animal eats. You're fine. I have alligator snapping turtles that I use in hand for presentations and lectures. They are literally open mouth luring within 10 minutes of being put back in their water. They don't care that I handled them or they were in a box for 2 hours. They don't care at all.
Right.
They know that it's food. They're hungry. They're going to lure. If they're active and healthy, like Greg's snake is moving and active and clearly has been fed well and is healthy and is, interacting with you on the level that it should be, I guarantee you that amount of handling, even if he stayed here for 5 hours with that snake on him, he puts it away, it'll feed no problem. It's
Yes.
a very, very important thing to know that most people aren't hurting their animal by interacting with it in this way.
That's right.
Tortoises
And,
and turtles, they come running when food is present. I have a group of red-eared sliders. I have, obviously, because that's, the animal that gets dropped off the most. And we have a group of African spurred tortoises. Every one of them, every single one of them equates a human with food. None of them are afraid of anything. We can go do a show and hand them a watermelon or a lettuce or whatever it is that they're going to eat on that particular day, and they will devour it. They do not care what they have done. They do not care where they have been. They know that they're comfortable, healthy, and happy. And I mean, for running the rescue for as long as I have, the first sign of an animal being healthy and not stressed is food for me. That's the first thing that I wait for. They get here. We have them in the rescue for a couple of days. I don't interact with them. I allow them to calm down and relax, because if you picked me up and brought me somewhere, I'd be a little upset too. Let them calm down, and then I'll feed them. If they're insectivorous, obviously give them something they're used to, crickets, mealworms, whatever the case may be, and then go from there. And if they feed, which a lot of them, given that 2-day period, they go right back to eating, no problem. Ball pythons, I had one ball python get dropped off at the rescue. He didn't eat for 300 days, 363 days. Okay, that's fine. You're not losing any weight. You're not in any dire emergency stress. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not impacted. There's nothing clearly wrong. Okay, just sit, man. You're good. I won't bother you. Now, that snake is one of our educational animals who comes out with me 2, possibly 3 times a week, depending, and literally eats at the end of every week, no problem. And it's just a testament to the work that you're doing to reassure you that you are correct. Everything that you're doing is absolutely spot on, right? And the equivalent of an animal feeding, reptile specifically feeding, is they're very healthy, because a lot of them don't want to eat if they're stressed out. I've taken, how many black rats have I saved from the wild? I mean, we're talking some really dire straits, stuck to glue traps, in nets, all kinds of ridiculous things. You give them a day and they eat, and they're wild. They're eating frozen thawed rodents. No problem. They know. They're not stressed anymore. They've got a good temperature. They've, whatever those medium things are, whatever those care things are, as long as they have that, they're usually not going to stress out too bad, as long as you're doing what your due diligence, and you're doing an amazing job.
Thank you.
I have to admit.
A question I get a lot is about, will I ever breed these animals? And my answer is always that, I have 4 males and 3 females. I have 1 pair that's 5 years old, 2 males and a female that are 3, and then a pair of 2-year-olds.
Okay.
And eventually these animals are going to breed. They get to roam, they get to visit each other if they want to. I'm not forcing them into a small enclosure with a single perch in one heat spot.
Right.
So it's going to be very fun and interesting to see how my animals decide to breed. I'm really excited. Like, I feel like Asmoa and Zaltis are going to be a great pair. They're both explorative and always ready to come out. So I'm really excited to see how they choose each other.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see that as well, especially since you film a very big group of what you're, a very large amount of what you're doing. And I think that's going to be revolutionary for the industry, especially with Amazon, or excuse me, Emerald Tree Boas. But I think it will equate to that Amazon world in general with a lot of these snakes that we may not know the intricate secrets of how to get them to breed and courtship wise. And maybe we can fill the niche that needs to be filled with non-wild caught animals, and we can really start getting some of this stuff. You know, I'm not against breeding as a rescue. A lot of people are. I'm not in any way. I'm for breeding in captivity. Let's get animals that are healthy, not stressed, and not living their life in the wild, and let's get them into the hands of people so that they can properly be cared for, number one, with a really good started animal. But they're also not being removed from a wild population where it's very detrimental to have that this day and age in almost all biomes. It doesn't really matter if it's the Amazon rainforest, Australia, or wherever. All animals are very important to keep in the wild at this point. But you know, it's a really great way. It's a look into the wild animal. That's what you're doing. You're literally like providing the information that a documentary would have had to go and be in the wild for 5 years just to get the footage you're getting in 6 months, you know, just because you have the setup that you have, you're doing the work that you're doing. And it's really a remarkable, you know, I can't tell you that enough. It's fascinating to me.
Thank you.
The way you have
and
it
I
set
also
up.
wanted to bring up the name Happy Basins. Is there any to that, or is it as obvious as it sounds?
Yes, it's as obvious as it sounds, but you know, really it was kind of a little bit of rebellion too, because of all of the folks, you know, so many names come into my head right away who used to say so many things when I first started posting this stuff. And you know, my snakes are happy, and that's, you know, that was my dig. You know, like, my snakes are happy. There's nothing wrong with them. They're being engaged and they're interacting and they're actually enjoying it and they're happy. So that was kind of it, you know, like, look at my snakes, they're happy.
Yeah.
And I believe they are
Perfect
happy.
Perfect name.
Thank you.
I think it's kind of twofold too, because not only are the snakes happy, but I've just seen so many people respond in such a positive way too, that they just really enjoy the snakes, the jungle, the colors, just they want to learn more about the Amazon just from seeing some of the videos.
Yep.
So I think it makes people happy too. So I think it kind of goes both ways, but her snakes are definitely very, very happy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's obvious.
Oh
They're
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, I can tell not only the way you're interacting with it being amazing in itself, just because of what that animal, the cantankerous reputation that they have aside, that animal is a very top predator in its field. It typically was not liked to be handled in most modern books would tell you what you're doing is insane.
Yes.
You know, even books that were published only a couple of years ago. So what you're doing is changing the face of how to interact with not just Emerald Tree Boas, but maybe a lot of other species as well. And I think that's fantastic. And if you doing what you do, if you bring another 10 people up and they have 10 individual species that they're doing the same way, you know, you're just furthering what we do as a community for reptiles. Let's not forget, everyone, that we're not talking about dogs and cats. Our medicine, quote unquote, reptile medicine, is born in the 90s. That's not that long ago.
No.
We don't know a lot. We have no idea what's going on for the most part.
And we only started keeping these animals around the early 90s.
Right.
So I'm going to put her back and get a different one. Okay.
Sure. You know, I find it ironic that that's the one that you took out. She had just had a meal and here she is, she's out, and you said you weren't going to handle her, but she clearly was moving in a direction that was like, oh, so this is what I'm doing. I'm going to be picked up. Okay, come on, let's get this done.
Right.
I want to be touched.
I could totally, I don't know if you could see her right now, but she'd climb right on me right now if I let her. She's actually climbing out of her enclosure onto my head. So
yeah, she's actually wanting to come out.
Yeah. It's
so you were talking about getting bit twice by one of your snakes.
What?
He's been bit twice.
You talked about how you got bit twice by one of your snakes. And actually the snake that is crawling on my hat right now,
Yeah.
is the only snake besides a corn snake that I had a while back that bit. But he bit me one time and it was totally unexpected. He started crawling through my glasses, and it didn't seem like he was in like hunger mode. He was just cruising around and he actually bit my eyelids shut.
Wow.
Oh my.
Yeah. He bit my eyelids shut and I was too paranoid or too panicked to get it to record it on my way to get him, on my way to get him off.
Right.
And people always say, and I always know, what is the mistake? When a snake bites, it's a mistake that you made. But in this instance, I am not totally sure what the mistake that I made is other than blinking.
Mm,
So I was wondering if you had any
Maybe.
thoughts on that.
yeah. Maybe it's just been the blink.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, just the quick movement of
quick
the eye,
movement.
Yeah.
So I have one video. I thought Isis was gonna get Allison right in the face. She had just hissed. She was all coiled up and coming right at her face. And Allison just sat there and stared at her. And I remember thinking, if she blinks, that animal's gonna think that's a movement. So it's very possible it was the blink, but Allison was able to tell that her body was not tight. She was just moving. It just looked like she was going to strike.
Yeah.
But Allison could tell her body didn't tighten, because they tighten their bodies
Yeah. Oh,
before
yeah.
they strike.
Yeah.
She was wrapped around my neck, so I could feel every bit of her. And but she was making quite a bit of noise. And again, it's just being comfortable and handling them and just acting like that tree. If she wants to do what she wants to do, I'm fully prepared to handle whatever. And she's always been super good though. I can kind of tell when she's had enough handling, but she's actually been great right now. She's been super calm and I just love
Yeah, I
her.
noticed that she really hasn't moved much this entire time.
Yeah, she's amazing. But I kind of feel like I have a bond with her. So
Yeah, they
maybe-
really do. The first time they ever met, they sat together for 2 hours. We just sat in these hammocks talking. It was our second time we ever met.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, she bonded with Isis. This is an Angishita. This snake, he's blue. He just cleared up, so he's probably going to shed tomorrow, maybe possibly tonight, but he just cleared up, so it's going to be hard to tell. But he's got a super long snout.
Oh yeah, look at
Oh
that.
yeah. Yep.
It's a really long, really reminds me of a German Shepherd snout. You can really see how they originally got the caninus name.
Yep.
So
Pretty remarkable creatures you have there.
So I noticed that I want to say it's both of you have a Happy Basins podcast.
Yes.
yes, we're just getting it started. We don't know what we're doing. We're just trying. My husband hooked us up with all this great equipment. We have these microphones and the HD camera and everything. And we've been working on getting videos together. We have quite a lot. But I just finally started posting stuff because it was taking us too long trying to get the perfect intro and all the clickable stuff at the end. And we decided to just start posting and we'll deal with that later.
There you go.
So we have a lot of stuff to post. Like I said, Allison is a field wildlife biologist, and she takes me out to the swamps here in Arkansas, and we go find alligators, and we have found dozens of humongous, I'm talking, no exaggeration, 14 feet long,
Nice.
longer even, 4 foot wide. These things are huge.
Oh yeah.
And we also found,
So it is actually pretty remarkable because, we're a little different than Florida or Louisiana. Our gators are just in specific areas, and not a lot of nesting has been documented in Arkansas. A few, which actually I discovered the first alligator nest in Clark County, Arkansas, and documented and wrote that up and presented it at the Arkansas Academy of Science. But I've been out swamping for years and photographing, just, learning. took Amy out there, and the first time we went swamping together, we saw the big guys and we headed to a back area that had a little bit more marsh and vegetation. And I was making some calls, baby calls, to get some of the bigger gators to come in a little closer so I could photograph them. And we had stopped at this one little spot, and she said, listen, it's that noise you were making. And I got real quiet. Sure enough, we heard the little peeps of those babies, and we found an entire clutch of newly hatched this season's babies, and it was amazing. It was only the second time I've ever found a clutch of hatchlings, and it just was the funnest time. I mean, we had a blast out there.
But when I got home and I was going through the videos and putting them together, I kept shuddering. Like, I can't believe we were doing that.
I'm knee-high in the swamp with these babies peeping for their mom. And yeah, it's a little wild, but I mean, I'm fully aware, I've been out there all the time. I was, was watching very close for mom. We had been out there for a good half hour before I actually stepped in the swamp with them. So, so it just cracks me up because here she goes to Suriname and Peru and these jungles by herself sometimes, been with her, but she's gone by herself, and she is afraid of the little swamps in Arkansas.
Those alligators are big, and they do not have a personality. They just will eat you.
See, I find that completely backwards. They are 100% just as personable. I worked with alligators for many, many years.
I do too.
They are super intelligent, absolutely not top predators. They can be trained, taught, understand what you're doing. I feed when I had gators, I fed them all to a call. Like you could literally go in there and do anything you wanted, but if you made the baby gator noise, forget it. It was like the end of the day. It was we had 7 alligators, 2 caiman, and a crocodile at one time. And if you made that call in that room, forget it. It was like a torrential downpour of splashing, and it was absolutely nuts. But other than that, they wouldn't even hiss if it was just me walking in the room. Remarkable creatures. They have a capacity for learning that still, I mean, even to this day, if you go and look at our TikTok stuff, and I have a host who I run all the production, but he is the on-camera personality. He is a 30-year school teacher, biology school teacher. His name is Mark, and he does a phenomenal job talking about reptiles on camera, way better than I can. With me, I could do it, but it would take like 50 takes. He does it in one every time. I can't even tell you. But he's doing training videos. He's doing remarkable understanding of things like the pineal eye on iguanas, and just remarkable situations that not a lot of reptile keepers know about. One of the ones we just did was the training that he's doing with his 4-foot gator. And, he basically is working with it the same way that some of the guys in Florida does, where they have to stop, then he'll throw food in, and they can't lunge for their food, which I mean, it's phenomenal to be that close to a 4-foot gator. But these animals are so smart that they really understand, okay, if I just sit here for a second, food's going to get tossed in. I don't have to rush it. I don't have to attack. I'm going to get fed. I'll be all right. And it's brilliant animal.
They're amazing.
It's and to see big ones is remarkable. I can't ever look away.
They're big.
It's just
they're
a
big.
thing.
These guys are big.
Big.
But that sounds remarkable. So do you guys, with your podcast, are you doing guests? Or are you doing just the two of you? What's the format?
We're just starting right now. We've done just us going out and about to the alligator hunting, being in here with the animals. We did one where we showed the rain chamber, how they're all potty trained.
Nice.
We've just done different stuff in here.
Very cool.
So,
That's
but we would
awesome
like
format.
to get to the point where we have guests and things. So like I said, we're learning how to do it all.
And of course, we'll be sharing about our trips.
Right.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, of course. Absolutely. Believe me, if I could get away, I would.
Yeah.
And
if
we're going
if
back.
I could get out, I would.
Yes.
You're going back?
We're going to Suriname and Guyana in February. Allison and I, and I've done most of my trips. I went by myself, but I took Allison with me once, and then another girl, Kyra, came with me another time. And then February, the three of us are going back. So
Oh,
that's
nice.
going to be really amazing.
That does sound amazing.
So excited.
And I really
Stay
like to
safe.
go to Suriname because everybody speaks English.
Right.
And you know, I've spent months in the jungle in south of the Amazon, in Peru, Colombia, Brazil.
Mhm.
And you know, I have found basins, but I have spent months out there without finding anything.
Right.
So in Suriname, that's a whole different story. You don't go out at night without finding multiple emeralds. They're you know, the guys know where they are.
Nice. That's
they're
So,
prolific.
and I go with two trappers. I'm doing this return trip with two fellas. They were trappers for 30 years, and now they don't want to do that anymore. Their hearts turned against it, and now they want to do conservation and tourism.
awesome.
So we're kind of working together to get, you know, I'm bringing two people right now, and then I'll work to keep putting little groups together to take
Right.
out there.
Right.
That sounds amazing.
That sounds like a great way to do things. A great way.
But
I mean, yep.
when I go to Peru, Colombia, and Brazil, Allison went with me after my third trip there. And you know, I go with no plan because you have to go to very remote villages. I mean, you know, I went to one village, there were two people in the whole village that ever saw a white person in person.
Yeah.
So I was like their very first white person. And then I brought Allison back there, you know, a few months later. And those are the kind of places we go to. And there is not internet. You know, you can't call and say, is Jose going to have his boat available tonight? You just have to show up and, you know, ask questions, find out who's the local fisherman who knows the area.
Right.
We look for particular types of trees that grow the fruit that rats eat. And one guy asked
That
me
makes
one
total
time, you
sense.
know, because the communication's difficult. You're doing everything through your app because I don't speak Spanish and they don't speak English in those villages.
Nope.
But I was getting asked, this is a very special snake. It eats fruit. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, sweetie. Sorry. It's okay. Because I was saying we needed to find the fruit trees because that's where the snakes were going to be.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah.
a lot can be lost in translation. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, we know what kind of trees to look for thanks to Igor in Suriname. I don't know if you know who he is, but he's a very well-known exporter of animals in Suriname,
The name's
especially
familiar.
emeralds.
The name's familiar.
I would say his
I've
last
never
name,
never imported anything, but I've definitely seen or heard his name out of somebody. I don't know whom, but
well, I've got to you know, meet Igor both times I went to Suriname, and he's absolutely fantastic. And I think that Igor probably has something to do with the lack of negative comments that I was getting before I met Igor. So that was pretty cool to get to be with real experts.
I think people just don't like change, and you're doing something completely different than ever's really been done, especially with emeralds in general, you know, most snakes in general, but definitely with emeralds. And I think nobody wants to hear that they shouldn't be keeping them on a PVC rack. Really. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the same pushback that people have been dealing with this bioactive push and this naturalistic push, and in the same generalized statement. And there's reasons for both to be applicable. It depends on what you're doing. It really does. If you're talking about safety, security, taking in an import and doing something where you have a group of animals in one room and you have an imported animal in another room, maybe you are using a very sterile environment to make sure that animal didn't bring something into your house, let alone if you are a seller or what have you. But at the same point in time, you know, once it's set up and it's in your home, do you have to keep it that minimalistic? No, of course not. You should give it anything it wants. You know, we go through it at the rescue quite often with this mentality of don't have snakes in racks, but also we have the same mentality of, you know, our captives don't live in racks. It's one of those things, you know, baby animals, sometimes they do better in racks, but adult animals, they should not be living their entire life in it. You know, it's a, and I think that needs to be spoken a lot more than it really is that there's a blend that we all can come to, where we're in the middle of this trying to all be better for animals situation. And I just think it's really unspoken, but a lot of people feel the same way. I don't really think if you went to any of these big time breeders and said, hey, listen, you know, do you want your animals sold to somebody that's going to go into this tiny little environment that it's going to live in forever? Or do you want this animal to thrive and have a really beautiful enclosure? I get that you do it. You have 55 animals. I understand that you're doing that for a reason, but do you want that baby, all of those babies that you produce, to live out their life that way? You can see these big, beautiful enclosures, not only behind you, but also behind Greg. And it's clearly a push in the right direction. When I was younger, it was racks. Rack companies made more money than you could ever possibly imagine. Now, a lot of people are shying away from that. And I think it's good. I think it's good publicity for people who are keeping reptiles to show off exactly the room that you're being filmed in, exactly the room that Greg is being filmed in. There are no reptiles in my room, so it's okay. But you know, I think it's great that that is becoming more of the normal background to a lot of the different reptile YouTube channels, and a lot of the different reptile publicity that's coming out is very positive, is very positive. They're all pushing back. And now I think the movement has come big enough at this point that enough people are really doing it that it's like, I don't want to keep my animal in a rack. I want to see it. And I've always kind of felt that way. Not that I didn't use racks 20 years ago, but I want to see it. I don't want to open it to see it. I want to see it always. It's got to be there. And and a lot of that comes with people making better products. Exoterra came out with the front opening enclosure. That was revolutionary for us as hobbyists in general. And then, you know, now you have XYZ 10,000 other groups doing it too. But it's a really awesome push in the right direction for the hobby, for the industry, for people keeping animals in general. You know, we didn't make cows to have milk thousands of years ago to be able to like keep them in tiny little houses. You know, most cows are still they're farm raised. They're not in tiny little spots. Only when they're being milked, they're in tiny little spots, but otherwise they're out in the field grazing. Look at that animal on that tree, Greg.
That's Ningisida.
That's amazing. And I'm sure that's exactly how you see them in the wild too.
Yes, exactly. Not on one straight string, but strung all the way up and down through branches.
Remarkable.
Yeah. I think it's also great, not just for reptile keepers, to have animals displayed this way and kept this way, but also for people who aren't reptile people. You know,
good point.
It's great for people who think that they don't like reptiles, just, you know, lack of education or a bad experience, to see like, wait, like this is something that I can elaborate, or, you know, decorate like an entire room, you know, people with the means to do that, you know, have a whole entire room that's just like, it's gorgeous. And it's not like anything that you see when you go to the pet store.
Right. Well, I've actually been out with Amy, just, you know, either out to eat or something, and people locally have kind of gotten to know her videos in the jungle room, and they will literally say, I would love to come see your jungle room, because and they're not snake fans, they're not reptile people, but just because they're interested in it, because it's so visually beautiful.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen my video. I babysat this little girl. She was only 4 years old. She was just about to turn 5. This is Bella. She's only 2 years old. You see how her little stick is a lot smaller.
Yep.
And this is actually a natural stick I bleached and shellacked.
Okay.
And then I just added some more vines for embellishment for her. But yeah, a little girl, she wasn't even 5 years old yet. She was going to be 5 in like a month. And her mom is my husband's masseuse, and she comes here to the house, and we needed her to come one day. And she said she didn't have a babysitter. And I said, well, I'll gladly babysit. And I brought the little girl down here. Of course, she was in Wonderland. She held 4 of my snakes. They were just slithering right up to her face, you know, full straight bodies, absolutely zero concern. And I know my animals. And that little girl, there's a video of her holding all those different snakes crawling around her face. You know,
She's so happy.
yeah.
She is so happy with those snakes.
And
They're so cute.
I've had my husband's mother, she's 80, Nan. She never touched a snake in her life, and she's 80 years old. And she came over here and she was touching them and talking to them like a baby. It was the cutest thing, you know, and she said she would never even come over here after we got them.
What a remarkable situation. And I mean,
Yeah, and multiple. I mean, I have more people. My neighbors.
The fact that you're doing that with emeralds is what's you know, I do very similar stuff, but the emerald side of it is absolutely flooring. You know, that's like, in my opinion, previous to this conversation would have been like, you know, here's an amethystine python. Let's hope for the best. You know, like that's where my mind goes, is like, let's hand them some kind of snake that's really apt to biting, you know, 1,000 pacer, something that's going to bite almost no matter what, because it's very scared all the time. And I would have never thought you could interact in this format so easily with emeralds, and to bring other people down. Like, I would never, even if I had a friendly emerald, I don't think I would ever trust it with a 4-year-old. I barely trust the one ball python with anybody under like 3. You know, and he's never tried to do anything negative to anything. But again, in emerald, it's you're doing this style of interaction and education.
These animals are ambassadors. I have 7 fantastic ambassadors. And this is my little girl right here who wasn't even handleable until recently. And I believe the reason she wasn't handleable is that she was a rescue. When she was born in Florida, she wouldn't eat. Gotcha. So the fella from Florida sent her to Colorado to get some help.
Okay.
And Steve Volk raised her on cat food and a syringe. And once she was, you know, a little bigger, he tried to get her to take a Chinese dwarf hamster. They have an extremely high heat index, and he keeps those for his baby who won't eat. And she ate a couple of those. So then he shaved the fur off of them and rolled that fur onto the frozen defrosted. And she started taking that. And this animal, she eats beautifully. Mm-hmm. And so I think that all that little trauma for her, you know, made her more leery of people.
Yeah, but absolutely.
Then she fell in love with Allison. And ever since then, Allison never flinches with her. I still do. Ever since then, she's been really good.
Oh, she's amazing.
And like, Allison will touch her and she'll take her head quickly to Allison's hand, but never bite or anything.
Wow.
Well, no, she's never bit.
Mm-hmm.
I try to handle her as much as I can when I'm here, because she's actually one of my favorites too. Isis has my heart, but Bella's really crept in pretty close. She's just a sweet, sweet girl.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
So what are your guys' plans for the future, as far as, you know, obviously traveling? We know the traveling,
the podcast,
you know, but the snake room that you're in, you know, like that. What, any plans for that? Any plans for the podcast? And
this room is just about to be transferred. We have a winter project. Pieces of it are already in the living room. All of these enclosures are about to be rebuilt to be able to handle a full range chamber inside of the enclosures.
Oh, okay.
That's just another really big problem, I believe, with the wild caught northerns, is these animals drink the rain.
Yep.
And you might see them drinking out of their water bowl, but these animals will drink for 20 or 30 minutes without stopping.
Yeah.
And they need rain. They love the rain.
Yep.
So we're going to offer
mine would coil on itself and catch any rain that I dropped in anytime.
Right.
I would do that every other day religiously. I mean, they're rainforest. It rains all the time there. Continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So then also, like what you can see, there's going to be a glass wall, sliding glass doors. And the whole part where my animals go free is going to be completely closed off. So right now, when I let the animals out, I watch them, on my phone. I can watch them on my phone, or I sit in the hammocks. But pretty soon I won't have to do anything. So
they'll true free roam without anybody's supervision. Wow.
Yep. And that's when I'll start, letting a male out, or, females.
Right.
I was told that these animals don't reach their sexual maturity until they're 6 to 10 years old. So of course you can breed them when they're 4 years old, but the circumstances that these animals are breeding in are extremely stressful circumstances for these animals. And they're more likely to breed under stress, really, just like they do in the wild.
Right.
When they come out of a stressful situation through the stressful winter, that's when they breed, when they're done with that. My animals have not had any cycling yet, but we're going to work on that this year. We're going to start cycling. Actually, this is the month that they're going to get fully cycled with food, temperature, and lighting.
Oh, wow.
So, I have the 5-year-olds. So we'll see how that goes. Will I ever get rid of any animals that I breed? Eventually I'll probably have to, but it's going to be really hard.
I don't think you will. I don't think you will. I think you're going to hold on to every single one that comes out.
I happen to agree with you, but she tells me I think I can, as long as they go to the right people.
Yeah, if the animals were going to be adopted by somebody who was going to give them a life as good or better than what they can have with me, I know I would feel comfortable with that.
That's a very acceptable situation. Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
But definitely they would never go to a home where they were going to not have a life and be pets. That's one of the things I'm so proud of, is that my animals are pets. They're not display animals.
Right.
They are true pets.
Yeah. Interactive, the whole 9 yards. Yep.
And they really do have their own personalities, and I mean, they're just amazing.
They definitely do. Bella's completely cleared up. I thought she was going to shed last night, but she's probably going to shed tonight for sure. So that's why I didn't take all these animals. Otherwise, we would have been holding all 7 of them.
I got you. I got you.
Multiple times.
But if you want to see that, go to your Instagram.
Yeah. Follow these on social media. Absolutely. Anywhere applicable. Oh my goodness. I can't even. I can't. I'm lost for words. I really don't even know where to even try to go from here with a conversation. It's just such a remarkable species to have, not only keeping 7 of them, having all 7 of them to be handleable and feeding, and talking about possible procreation, and really it's really a remarkable situation to see this open care, I guess. I husbandry, maybe. I'm not really sure where that would fall, but not only is husbandry such a key point to keeping a reptile healthy and happy, you've taken it a step further by allowing them to really feel a lot more natural in their own environment. It's pretty remarkable. I keep saying that. I don't say that a lot. Trust me, it's really remarkable. I had a lot of conversations.
I have the Alexa down here.
Okay.
And I always have Amazon rainforest sounds playing in here. And when I had that little girl, I've had many children in here, but that particular little girl, she was so cute. And she said, "Why do you have that music playing? Is it so your snakes can just feel like snakes?" So I love that. And now I feel like, I always say that now. My snakes get to just feel like snakes.
Yeah.
In all the ways.
Yeah, they don't have to, they're not in the same situations as a lot of other pet snakes. And a lot of other pet snakes are forgiving and friendly and care, they're very great animals. But what is so remarkable about this is that this is a deep-seated animal that is in everyone's mind, cantankerous, something hands-off, something display, even myself up until we've had this conversation, something that is remarkably capable of inflicting a hell of a bite, but at the same point in time, you've risked enduring that bite, and I'm going to say, you know, you've risked that scenario playing out and you have gotten past that. And now you have a wonderful relationship with 7 animals that I don't really think there's a lot of other people who keep reptiles across the entire world that can say that with the species that you have, you know. And I should know better at this point in my adulthood that animals that are treated correctly can be a lot more forgiving and friendly and outgoing and less cantankerous, defensive, and scared. Primarily in my lifetime, reticulated pythons would be my definition of that. You know, 20 years ago, these things were all wild caught. They were absolutely crazy. They didn't want to be dealt with in any way. Now here you have a retic for every home, as some people on social media would let you believe, but they really have gotten to be a lot calmer than a lot of the ones I dealt with 20, 25 years ago. 25 years ago, you know, it was a gamble. You can have an 18-foot long snake that doesn't like you, or you're going to have an 18-foot long snake that's a puppy dog. You know, what's the outcome going to be?
Right.
You know, and you're here proving that with a species that in my wildest thoughts would have never ever thought that it was possible to have that interaction with. And I think it's great. I think it's really great. I think what you do is incredible. I'm sure Greg agrees with me. You know, I don't really have, other than what I just said, I don't have words. I can't. Greg, you're up. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I really wanted to thank you guys for coming on, and, you know, all the lists, you know, the list of people that I want to have on the podcast. It's not like I have a huge list of people that I'm like, this one's next, this one's next. What you're doing like stands out to me, and there's something about what you're doing that is, you know, maybe
Valuable.
game changing.
Yeah.
Maybe, you know, game changing, something like that. You know, I have to have a discussion with you about it. And, you know, you guys were, you know, right on the top of the list of people that, you know, I was very eager to have on.
Wonderful.
What
I'm
you're
so
doing
glad to get the word out. I just want everybody to know how these animals truly are, and that they do enjoy engagement. And I've proved it because of the way, you know, like Ningishita, for example, you know, he's blue right now, but he's still unwound and, you know, was real casual and happy. And he used to coil up and hide his head. And my interaction with him has changed his personality. It didn't make him hide. It made him start sleeping closer to his door.
Right.
Always looking when I walk in the room, you know, what does she have? Does she have water? Is she going to let me out? Am I going to get food? They want things, and you can tell when they want something. And if, you know, I walk into the room, and Cassius Clay's most famous for it, coming right out, you know, to look around and see what's going on. And I open the door and interact with them. It's with 7 of them, and me being a newbie, I've only been at this for 2.5 years now, not even. And 7 different animals all behaving the same way. I would say that's not luck.
No, I agree completely. And that, I mean, you know, they always say the proof is in the pudding. And not only are you doing this with wild creatures that you find literally in their home range, but you're also doing this with 7 captive creatures as well. And I think that you're spot on with your understanding. You know, you've got it. You know, what you're doing is invaluable research, whether you produce it, you know, professionally as a scientist or not. It's still very invaluable research. You know, you may not have a control, which eliminates that community, but who cares? Because 7 is a very good number. And what you do in the wild with the animals that would typically be, I mean, for lack of a better use of word, chainsaws to any other human trying to grab them out of a tree is really pretty amazing. You know, it really is. I can't say that enough. I mean, it really is an invaluable resource of information in this hobby today that you can interact with your snakes, regardless of the species, in a very different way if you choose to.
Yes. And, you know, you're talking about collecting quantitative data for, you know, having a controlled research environment, but case studies and qualitative data are just as
Yep.
valued and respected.
Yep.
And with the amount of case studies that
Well,
I
I
have,
mean, they are in a scientific community. Unfortunately, this hobby does not follow science all that well sometimes.
right.
So
Well, like you said, the proof
mine
is
was
right
not,
here.
yeah, mine was not to discredit you in any way. Mine was to
No, I
discredit
understand, yes.
okay. Yeah, mine was taking away from what the hobby feels is appropriate versus what is really going on here. You know,
Right.
what's
And
really
I will be writing a book.
good, because what's
My
going
book-
on here is groundbreaking. Absolutely. This is no different than the books I read 20 years ago about crocodiles in all sorts of waterways all over the world. You know, this is no
Right.
different than what Steve Irwin did when he was talking about crocodilians, specifically, obviously, Crocodilus prosus. But, you know, when he was mapping and figuring out where they're going, why they're going there, using all of his technologies that were new to him to figure out what was going on, it's no different. Absolutely no different, just a different species. You're
Mhm.
providing invaluable research based on creating a pet reptile, which I think is absolutely phenomenal, beyond words phenomenal, because I think everyone should own something as beautiful as an emerald. But it's a really remarkable amount of information that you're bringing to light over something that somebody thought was so demonized or cantankerous, I guess would be the best way to describe what their past reputation is.
Mhm.
It's not different than most of the other arboreal species all over the world. You know, that's
Right.
the key right there. You have one of the most cantankerous animals in what would be the hobby 20 years ago that most people would shy away from. Oh, they die too quickly. They're not friendly. They can't be handled. They have to be in this. They need this. They need that. And you're proving 90% of all of that wrong. And that's
Right.
anytime
But
somebody,
thankfully, all that other information is there, and I was able to build on it. You know, of course,
right. There
those
are
guys had to go through
Right.
that, and I understand, but it's
Right.
over now. We have a different perspective. We have
Right.
more facts. We know more, and the puppy mill style snake houses break
Yep.
my heart,
Yep.
and especially
Absolutely.
because I'm so attached to the emeralds. When I see
Right.
the emeralds in those little, oh gosh, it just really
I get it. I totally
me.
get it. I
And I
totally
love
get
that you
it.
said that you know you appreciate what people before you have done, but it's over now.
Yeah. And I think that's
Yeah.
the best way to frame that conversation is, listen, thank you. You did your due diligence with the information that you had at the time, but now that time is over and we have a different understanding, period. And with that
I don't
understanding,
even think that these keepers, I don't think the keepers even know that
Right.
these are foraging animals. They are not solely ambush predators.
I was just gonna say, one of my favorite quotes is, if you know better, you do better.
correct.
So I think that is one of the most important things we'd like to get out there, is that we can do better, and they're happier for it.
Yeah. I always say we
Really?
owe them more. It's just, I've been saying that for many, many years, and I probably continue to say that forever. We owe them more. We
Mhm.
only know a little bit. They know more than us. Let's learn.
Right. Mhm.
It's very important work that you're doing.
And build on their natural instincts, like
Yep.
you were saying earlier.
Yep.
Find out what
I can't wait to
their,
read your book, by the way, just
Thank
so we're
you.
very clear. I
I
will
know.
definitely be buying that.
Yep.
thank you.
There's no question.
It'll have every bit of information. I've been
Yeah.
collecting screenshots of conversations in the forums, so I won't only have my own data, but things that other people have said. My data from the wild, the data that I collect from these guys right here. I
Good.
really want to wait on my book. I will not be publishing anything until I've had successful
course.
breeding,
Of
because
course.
I feel like, you know, if my animals never bred, I would be perfectly fine with that. It's actually a little scary.
Right.
I think that I have a good chance of having healthy babies because my animals get enough exercise. I think that's a huge factor with all these slugs and dead babies being born. Because in the wild, I don't think, to quote Steve Volk, I don't think that nature's that wasteful.
Right.
So I
Right.
believe that the exercise that my animals get, and being allowed to wait until they're
If
until they want to breed.
if they're doing something right, exactly. It's a matter of
But once I'm successful at that, because, you know, people can people who are dead set on, focusing on breeding wouldn't find my book as valuable. So
Right.
I do want to have that, piece of expertise, that piece of experience in there with it too.
Unfortunately, people who solely have an animal to breed it should take your information as valuable, because if you produce 12 to 15 healthy babies, that increases their yield, regardless. What do they call that? It's
Fecundity?
conservation through commercialization, right?
Allison talks about that a lot.
The best way to breed something should be the optimal way to breed something. The healthiest babies, the longevity, whatever you want to call it, should always be that. It should always be that. Any breeder who breeds anything, it doesn't matter whether it's cows, pigs, dogs, cats, mice, rats, snakes, you should always want the best babies possible.
Yes.
I breed all my own
even
mice.
our rats.
Right.
We
I was just going to say,
rats
I was just going to say, I breed all my
because-
own, and I don't feed them crap. I don't feed them dog and cat food. I spend the money on the lab block. There's no reason not to. Those are going to fill the bellies of the animals that I'm going to turn around and adopt. I don't want them to die tomorrow because they ate hemorrhaging rodents. I want them to thrive and have an animal that they're eating that's going to be as close to a wild creature that they would be eating with the nutrients involved as possible. And it's just to me, it's always been that way. And I don't really see a lot of subpar breeders in the groups that I'm around anymore. It seems to be something a little more way of the past kind of a thing when it comes to your generic species that are commonly available. But in the same respect, even at the advent of new information for those species, it should be taken into effect. It should be taken into account and should be used for that purpose. If you want to make money with reptiles, that's great. Sell healthy babies and you will. Period. It doesn't get any simpler than that equation. Really, it really doesn't. And again, you're right on the money. You have a completely different system of husbandry than probably everybody who's working with northerns. You may end up with that holy grail clutch of, I don't want to say clutch, it's not the right word, but you may end up with that litter that is 100% success rate because you've put in this time, energy, and effort into understanding what they really need.
Yes, I believe that's
Flawless.
what's going to happen.
I do too. I do too. Because I've seen people who breed Amazons, which I know are very different, but the ones that have been given a lot
Not really,
of
they're all out there together.
Yep.
They're always in the same trees. The Amazons and the Emeralds are all together in every country.
See, there you go. That's even more appropriate. I've dealt with a few Amazon breeders who give their animals exercise and they have much better litters. And I deal with people, I've heard, I should say, about people who have horrible litters because they're kept in a 10-gallon aquarium on its side and they have just, clear PVC plastic or acrylic perches that they can go to 3 different perches and that's it. Whereas, some of the people who are breeding Amazons have these giant elaborate setups, which for an Amazon, is kind of like walking around your room. They're not quite as big as an Emerald. Keep them in a 4x2x2 on its side. And that's a huge space compared to what commercial breeders are using for Amazons. And it's a remarkable, again, change in the direction of positive interactions. It's not unacceptable to breed a reptile. It's unacceptable to breed a reptile poorly. That's I've always been in that boat. Again,
right.
You're doing it right. You're on the right track. And I love this. This is fantastic. You're going to get like 1,000 likes on everything that you've done so far from Hudson Valley Reptile and Rescue tonight. When I go lay down after this podcast, I'm literally just going to sit there and scroll through and watch videos and like every single one of them. I promise.
Thank you.
It's just there is no other choice. There isn't. I support it
really
100%. Not that my opinion is worth anything in any way, but it's definitely there. You've got it.
Your opinion is definitely valuable.
Yes.
You have a lot of experience. And, Allison, like I said, Allison has a degree in field wildlife biology, and my degree, I'm a mathematics professor. And all of my stuff is mathematics. And then I have
Right.
a PhD in analytics and research. So even though my degree is not, animal based, I still have the
Still in
credentials
analytics.
for research
Yeah,
and
it's
writing.
still in analytics, so it is animal based. I mean, 90%
That's
of
right.
animal
So
integrity.
between the two of us, we're
Yeah.
gonna write a good book.
Yeah,
Good.
and we
Yep.
actually are a really great pair because what she lacks, I'm strong in. What I lack, she's strong in, and I'm a wildlife photographer too. So hopefully, when we go
There you
back
go.
to Suriname, we can get amazing videos and photos, and anything that we capture that is important. Hopefully, will be put in the book as well.
Mm-hmm,
Sounds great.
definitely.
Keep it up,
Yeah, I'm
please.
looking forward to
We really appreciate having you here. This has
Thank you,
been
guys.
phenomenal. I'm not going to let this run too much longer, only because it's a heavy load to edit. But my computer's great.
Well, we
but
know
it's not-
that.
We understand.
It's not all that great,
There's not much to edit.
Well, no, I don't really edit anything. I just kind of let everything go, really, honestly. It's just a lot to play through and rewatch, because then I have to talk to myself, and it's just awful. But
I know.
no,
We
I'm
get
kidding.
it.
I'm not shy. But I really appreciate both of you being here. This has been a remarkable experience. Everyone who's watching this or listening to this, however you're doing it, please go follow. Go follow.
Happy Basins.
Happy Basins? All on
Happy
everything.
Basins.
On everything.
We have everything. All the
Everything.
social media is Happy Basins.
Everything's
And
Happy
then
Basins. Perfect.
our YouTube channel only has a few videos, but I have a lot of videos. I'm just adding them.
Mhm.
Gotcha.
So
Good.
Yep.
Well, we really appreciate it on behalf of myself, Brian from Hudson Valley Reptile and Rescue, and yourself, Greg, from.
and Amy Benzi and Allison Surf.
There we go. Perfect.
Perfect.
Thank you so
Yep.
much, ladies, for being part of this. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, I look
Have a
forward
good
to the
evening.
update.
What'd you
Yeah.
say, Greg?
I said I look forward to the updates coming.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you very much. Thank you both. It was
Yeah.
a great pleasure to meet
Of
you.
course.
Have a good evening.
Yeah,
Thank
Me
you.
too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.